If you want to know a bit about the history of the Cold War, you're in the right place. We're going to do a bit of the history, we're going to look at the history of the guns, and we're going to do it right now. I'm playing Armada, I'm playing with the MP5. Was there ever a fight between the Soviet Union forces and American forces on ships in the middle of the ocean? No, there wasn't, so this is totally historically inaccurate, but if you want to know more about the MP5, wait till the end of the video. I'm going to use an analogy to try to help you to understand why this whole thing happened at all. I tried to think of two people who just would not get along that you'd all understand, so I went for a Ku Klux Klan racist member and the civil rights campaigner campaigning for black rights. And imagine they lived at opposite ends of a street. They're never going to get on, they're never going to have the same values, they're just going to be completely incompatible, but if they live at opposite ends of the street, it's not going to be a problem. But I did think of one example where the Ku Klux Klan member and the civil rights campaigner might actually join forces to help out. Only one, but I did think of one. Zombies, that's right. Flesh-eating zombies. Let's say the houses in between were full of flesh-eating zombies. I think then, despite their huge differences, the Ku Klux Klan member and the civil rights campaigner might team up to deal with the zombies because they would be a bigger problem than each other. The problem would come afterwards when they'd sorted the zombies out and they sat down and looked at each other and went, what are we going to do now with these houses in the middle? Well, this analogy is effectively what happened with the Soviet Union and the United States of America. They lived at opposite ends of the street, they were opposite ends of the world, they were never ever going to get on, they were completely incompatible, but they had nothing to do with each other, which is why most historians would agree there was no Cold War until after the Second World War. But the thing that brought them together was Hitler. He's the zombies in all of this. He was a bigger problem than anything else, so they joined forces to try to deal with the Nazis and Hitler in Europe. And then afterwards, they kind of stopped and looked at each other across Europe and thought, now what the hell are we going to do? And that's where the problem started, because two people or two groups that were totally incompatible suddenly had to make key decisions together.
Body dropped. Taking A. Losing Bravo.
Artillery awaiting target coordinates.
Hostile spy plane established overhead.
A big reason for that was because of the Soviet Union belief in Marxist-Leninist doctrine. Here's Karl Marx. This is the guy who invented the whole theory of communism, and at Christmas times worked in department stores as Father Christmas. Except he didn't, so don't write that in your exams. And many years after Marx died, along came Lenin, the first person to put the theory into practice and tried to bring communism to a real country, and that country, of course, was the Soviet Union. And together, they formed Marxism-Leninism, the world's worst boy band. Except it wasn't, so don't write that in your exam either. Me and my cat here, we're going to tell you what the heck this all means. Now, the theory of Marxism-Leninism, or even communism for that matter, was that, to begin with, that history's gone through stages. You have the king. The king's had all the power. Then, time went by. Naturally, the king ended up having to share power with the landed gentry, the powerful people who owned land in the country. As time wore on and things industrialised, like the Industrial Revolution that happened in Britain and other parts of the world afterwards, the bourgeoisie, the capitalist moneymakers, they took power, the industrialists, the people who own the mills and the factories. So they thought, kings, then the people in charge, like owning the land, then the people in control of factories. Who's left? The workers. The next logical step would be that the workers rose up and they took power. And when the workers did, things would become more equal. There would be equal society where people get paid and people would get the things that they need to get by. But there's another significant part to Marxism-Leninism, and that was that they believed that this wouldn't just happen in one country. They believed that this would happen all over the world. It was a crucial part of their theory because, of course it would. If that's the natural stages of history, then the whole world would turn communist. And that was a big problem as far as America was concerned. Why did America care? Well, America was, and still is, run by people who are very, very wealthy. They are, and they were, the most powerful, wealthiest nation in the world, and as far as they were concerned, capitalism worked. And if you are talking about communism spreading around the world, well, communism is something to be feared, because communism means you have to share. You've got no choice in this. The wealth will be shared in communism. So the Americans, the people in government in America, had a very vested interest in making the people of America scared of communism because they themselves were scared of communism. And make no mistake, there are things to, as it turns out, be very worried about when it comes to a communist society. Mostly the lack of freedom. And America's the land of the free. So there's another big reason why to be terrified of communism. They were not happy that this nation had risen up, and they were worried what would happen next if communism was going to spread around the world. But of course, until the Second World War, communism was happening in the Soviet Union, very far away from America, so it wasn't a big problem. Oh, and by the way, here's Comintern. This is an organisation set up by Lenin in 1919 with the sole purpose of trying to spread communism through the world by supporting communist parties in other parts of the world. So there's another reason why America might be worried. But they weren't particularly worried because Comintern wasn't doing a very effective job at getting other countries to adopt Comintern before the Second World War, of course.
Taking D. Losing Yakov. D locked down.
And so it seems like before the Second World War, America is innocent. Of course they're not. One of the first things that the Americans did, and the British for that matter, is after the communists had taken power in Russia, a civil war broke out between the communists and Russians who did not want to have a communist state. And the Americans, the British and other nations beside sent money, sent weapons, even sent soldiers to go and try to wipe communism off the face of the planet before it became a big problem. So the Soviets had a very, very big reason to resent the capitalist nations like America. But after that initial outburst, after that initial fear, they mostly left each other alone until the Second World War, when they were forced together by Hitler to deal with Hitler. Afterwards, they looked around at Europe and they had to decide what to do between them. Anyway, that's your history lesson. Stay tuned for a bit more gameplay, and then I'll talk to you, or I'll show you some facts about the MP5. Hope that was useful. Thanks.
Enemy sentry turret detected in your AO. Losing D. There's no winning this. They can flee. Losing Delta.
Luck more.
Securing Bravo.
Spy plane available for tasking.
Enemy RCXD detected. Securing C. Charlie secure. Enemy spy plane inbound. Enemy took Alpha. Hostile spy plane detected. Charlie locked down. Enemy spy plane inbound. Taking Echo. Echo one down. Losing C. Securing Alpha. Artillery targeting detected. Artillery inbound.
So that's it for this time on my history of the Cold War. Hope you've enjoyed it, hope you've learnt something too, and if you have, let me know. Thanks very much.